All right, hi everybody. This is Sensei Dean, KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu again. Today I thought I'd do a video on learning curves in the martial arts. I've done martial arts now for over 20 years. I started with a striking style and then moved to Judo and I'm picking up now Jiu-Jitsu. That's kind of want to talk about my experience learning various martial arts and what it took to get good or proficient in terms of the learning curve and what it takes to really understand the art. So just a little bit of background into me. I started martial arts over 20 years ago, and I started with a striking style. It was Judo karate. It was the same style that Chuck Norris did. So I started there, and I trained in that for a bit over 10 years. And as I was getting up into the more advanced belts, I also started to cross-train judo. So I was in college. I was on the college judo team. I was doing karate 3 days a week and then judo the other 2 days a week at the same time. I eventually made it to second degree black belt in Judo, continued to do judo, and then when I moved to Texas in 2006, I just decided to focus exclusively on judo. So I did that for a while, and then about 3 years ago, I decided I wanted to learn more of the newaza, or ground fighting skills. So I came to KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu, been here for about 3 years now. So what I want to do is kind of share my perspective on the differences in the martial arts in terms of what it takes to become proficient. Now, when I say proficient, what do I mean? I don't mean, becoming a grandmaster or a world champion. I'm talking about what it takes to learn the fundamental skills so that you can be comfortable in a sparring situation, at least be able to hang with your classmates. So starting with the striking styles, the learning curve in the striking styles, I would say, is relatively quicker. And that's for a number of reasons. First, the number of techniques that you need to know to become proficient or hang in a sparring situation is relatively limited. So if you think about a boxer, right? A boxer, they really are throwing a jab, a cross, a hook, an uppercut. They're doing combinations. Obviously, you have to work on your footwork and your head movement and your parrying and counterpunching. But with just a few techniques, boxers are phenomenal strikers. Now, if you add a front kick or a roundhouse kick, right, you're a pretty proficient striker. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to learn, right? We can learn knees and elbows, back fists and spinning kicks, axe kicks. So there's a lot more to learn, but for just the basic fundamental skills, the techniques are relatively limited, and you can learn them pretty quickly. Now, the other thing that makes striking arts relatively easy to learn is that it's fundamentally about moving your own body. So I'm extending my fists, extending my legs in order to strike another person, and the challenge becomes hitting a moving target that's also trying to hit you back. But it's fundamentally about your own body mechanics and your own movements and abilities to hit that moving target. Now, when you move to the grappling styles, judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, sambo, it's not just about your own body mechanics and your own movement. You're also trying to move somebody else. There's much more contact. In addition to understanding your own body movements, you also have to understand your opponent's leverage, their weight distribution. Are they leaning to the left? Are they leaning to the right? Are they leaning front or back? You have to understand the timing involved. You have to understand their momentum. So it's much more difficult by its fundamental nature to learn those grappling arts. Because again, you're trying to move someone else who at the same time is also trying to throw you or pin you. So that makes it fundamentally harder to learn the grappling arts. Now that said, so the split between judo and jiu-jitsu. And when I say judo and jiu-jitsu, I mean the tachiwaza or standing part of judo and the ground fighting part of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Right, because obviously judo has ground fighting, Brazilian jiu-jitsu has some takedowns, but just as kind of shorthand, by judo I mean standing techniques, and by jiu-jitsu I mean newaza. So there, the nature of the learning curve, I would say, and in my experience anyway, is a bit different. So starting with jiu-jitsu, the catalog of techniques in jiu-jitsu is really large. So if you think about all of the positions, worst position, someone on your back, seat belt, being mounted, cross side or side control, keiza, north-south, playing closed guard, playing open guard, All of those positions have their escapes, their transitions. You have submissions from there, you have chokes, you have arm bars. So the number of techniques that you have to learn in order to progress, in order to be comfortable in free rolling is relatively high. Now you take judo, the Kodokan, the governing body of judo, or what standardized the curriculum, recognizes 67 throws. It's just 67. And of those 67 throws, 40 of them are in the core curriculum, the Gokyo no Waza. So you have to learn those 40 throws. But really, to become good or proficient, you need to know a subset of that. And it's really the first 8 to 10 throws in that Gokyo. You learn those and you can sort of hang. And most judoka, it's safe to say, are really proficient at 12 to 15 throws. The techniques that they actually know, that they're actually able to hit reliably, maybe a dozen to 15 throws most judoka have in the bag. Now, of those, even elite high-level, Olympic-level athletes only have a handful of throws, 2 or 3 throws that they really, truly specialize in. And then others that are kind of backup throws or secondary throws. So if you take someone like Teddy Riner, French judoka, he's one of the most decorated judo athletes probably of all time. Osotogari is his throw. That's probably the throw that you learn on day 1 in a judo class. So Osotogari is considered a beginner throw, but he's taken it to a much higher level. He can throw you left, right with different counters and combinations. Everyone knows Osotogari is coming, but he's so good at that one throw, he's able to get everyone with it. Or Koga with Shionage. You knew he was going to throw you with Shionage, but he just perfected it to a high level. Difference between the two in terms of the learning curve is that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or the Newaza side, the catalog of techniques is much larger, but it's fundamentally easier to learn each individual technique. In Judo, the catalog of techniques is smaller, or in Tachiwaza, or throwing, the catalog of techniques is smaller, but it takes a lot more repetition, drilling, practice, patience to get good at it so that you can do it in a sparring situation. Now, why is that? What's the difference? Why is it easier to learn individual techniques on the ground and harder to learn individual techniques on your feet? Well, if you think about the human physiology, we are upright creatures. We stand up and we can generate a lot of power and energy and dynamism when we're on our feet. So the analogy I like to use is think about a Major League Baseball pitcher. They can chain their muscles together to be able to throw a fastball at 90 to 100 miles an hour, right? They're using their back leg, they're pushing off that leg, twisting their hips, their shoulders, extending the arm all the way through to the fingers to generate a tremendous amount of force and be able to propel that ball at 100 miles an hour. Now you take that same pitcher and you put them flat on their back, right? Their ability to generate power and speed is a fraction of that. So judo by its nature, or the standing throws by their nature, are much more dynamic. The timing has to be much more impeccable. Your understanding of the body mechanics and the leverage and the real-time reaction to your partner, it's just a much, much higher learning curve to learn. Now on the ground, when, say, you're mounted on somebody, you have a lot more time and control. So the wonderful thing about being able to excel at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or ground fighting techniques is that what you've done now is that you've taken someone's ability to generate force and power and strength. You've put them on their back, so their strength is a fraction of what it would normally be. And say I'm mounted on you, I can isolate your arm, control your movements by controlling your hips, and take my time to set up the submission that I want, say the armbar. It progresses much more slowly. And for a student who's maybe never seen that technique before, they can kind of learn it and drill it a few times, drill it for a week, 2 weeks, and then be able to hit it in a rolling situation. Maybe not all the time, maybe not most of the time, but they can kind of get it. Obviously, with more time and more practice and patience, they can hit it more consistently, but it's relatively easier to learn. Now, individual judo technique, you might drill that for months or even years before you really understand the application of the throw, because it's, again, so much more dynamic. So what I like to do with our students here at KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu, and I didn't invent this at all, but we developed a progression for understanding the throws. So first we'll start with a static technique. So we call this uchikomi, where we're just practicing the throw without fully executing it. So one person will be standing, the other person will just be repeating the drills against an unmoving, unresisting partner, just so that the tori, or the person doing the throw, can get the basic body mechanics, how to enter into the throw, where to put their feet, where to put their hips, where to put their arms. Once they kind of have their own body mechanics down, then we start to apply some motion, and it'll be a predefined motion. So maybe your partner is taking one step forward or one step back. Maybe they're shuffling side to side, but you know exactly how they're going to move, and they'll enter into the throws that way. Then we'll move into free motion. So people can move in all directions, unpredictably. Now there's still no resistance, so the tori, the person doing the throw, still gets to practice the throw against a moving partner, but the partner is not applying any resistance at all. So they can get that mechanics with more dynamism. And then when they're ready, we'll start with full randori at varying levels of resistance. And really, it does take a lot more time to get at that proficiency in any given technique. So that's again my thoughts to the progression through the martial arts that I've studied. You might have some different thoughts or experiences as well, but at least in terms of how I came up, I found the striking styles that I studied to be relatively quick to pick up, grappling styles to be much more difficult, but the learning curves in each are a little bit different. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and please comment and question down below. Thanks. See you next time.